You know me, it's the time I share with all of you what I've read for this episode of the current show you are watching. Let's do this. The first book is The Death and Return of Superman. And the main reason why I decided to read that book, it's because I knew we had Steel over here, and Steel was part of Superman and Lois first and second season. He is actually around with season 3 and 4. And the other reason, it's a classic. Superman dies, what happens when he is gone? And the next book I did end up reading, the second volume of Supergirl, the Silver Age. So that was late 50s, early 60s. Actually, since it's volume 2, maybe it's actually mid 60s, late 60s. So that's what I read.
And we are live talking about movies and TV show once again. This is film and shows adaptation. Uh, Today we talk about Superman and Lois, the first two seasons. And I will start by saying it was a very fun TV show to get into. I really liked it. It was my second time watching. And as usual, it's just good Superman. It's just good stuff going on there. And I will start by talking about the first season. So the first season was really fun. And the idea is, what if Superman had a brother? I already spoiled many things. So season one was a very refreshing take on Superman because this time around Superman has two sons, and one of the two sons got powers. We got Superboy right here, right now, and we also got Steel. In the first season, Steel was the main antagonist for half of the season until he realized Clark, Superman, in this new Earth, rewind, in this new Earth he arrived on, is not the same Superman he fought on his own Earth, because Steel in this adaptation of the story is from another Earth, and he just arrived on Superman Earth, and it's a shock to realize it's actually a good guy, because in Steel Earth, Superman is a bad guy, and that's very interesting. And when he realizes he is dealing with a different Superman, they became, or rewind, they become allies. I don't know what's going on with me tonight. Um, Anyhow, let's get into my dislikes and my likes about this first season of a very good Superman TV show. If you have not seen it, go watch it. It's amazing. So my first issue would be pacing. It wasn't great. The season had 15 episodes, yet overall runtime could have been trimmed down. Some of the episodes could have been paired together, reducing the episode count to 12 or 13. No specific episode were filler. It was more like subplot were filler, and parts of episode were filler. You just cut it. You piece together some of the episode, and you earn a much better pacing. Now, my second issue with Superman and Lois first season. The cautions and lots of the high school drama was filler, and it did drag down the show. Sophie was also a filler character that had weak writing and acting, unfortunately. And she was the weak part, just like the cushions. And it's funny because that's a trend with season 2 as well. But again, the cushion were needed to give the boys exchange, to give outsider perspective to Lois and Clark. And they were also needed to tell you, the viewer, not every family is perfect, because Cushion is the perfect example of a very flawed family. that was very interesting to explore. But again, they were the weak part because you got Talro as the main plot after Steel got pushed in the background. And Talro was quite interesting. It was some kind of new take on Zod, and it was a perfect example of what happened when someone just like Clark is sent to Earth, but is not nurtured. He is not grown into becoming a superhero. No, he is forged into a weapon of destruction, and he is built into becoming a villain. And this is the tragedy of Talro. It's not really his fault that he is a bad guy. It's his upbringing that were really terrible. And that's what happened. He had a really bad dad, and he was heavily influenced by that dad, and eventually it turned out to be a rotten apple. Now, yes, he took the decision to be evil, and he also was seeing human as being evil as well. So let's deal with evil by being evil. That was the philosophy of the bad guy. So not don't place everything on Talro, but he is accountable. It's his choice. Could have been a better person, but he wasn't. Anyhow, that's the premise, and this season pits Superman against his brother, his Kryptonian heritage, and it's the struggle of I want to be a hero, but there's that really bad part of my past that tries to take over. And there's also very interesting and fun aspect where Superman fights off his darkness in that season. Now, let's get into the likes. Despite not sometimes, not always being on point, the CGI overall held up throughout the 15 episode. The action was on point and rock solid. John Henry Aaron growth into working with Superman and moving forward in life was great. John Henry saving Lois showed growth and great payoff. The John Henry Aaron that arrived in our Earth is not the same that was in his own Earth. And that's part of the charm. And that's a strength. Now, let's read out more of the likes about this season. Sam Lane growth into spending more time in family over war was great. Taro and Kal-El being polar opposite in upbringing was well depicted and made Taro into a great villain that was also well acted. Jordan and Jonathan had great personalities and the writing was solid to make them different from each other. Each character had good and bad traits, making their writing solid. Despite having a weaker late half of the season, most of the season was very consistent. It was a very good season. And now let's get into the top three and the worst three. So the worst three were episode 13 with a 6.5 out of 10. The second worst episode was episode 14 with a 7.5 out of 10. And the third worst episode was episode 6 with a 8 out of 10. Now my top three in third place. Episode 1 with a 10. It's then followed in second place with episode 15 with a 10. And my favorite episode of that season is episode 7. And I must also tell all of you this. Superman fought his dark side in that season by rejecting Talro's way of doing things. Superman has all of that power, doesn't want to assert dominance. That was the biggest difference between that Superman and the Superman from John Henry Aaron Earth. And that was peak Superman. So all of these Snyder fans that are like, what if Superman is evil? This show did it better. And yeah, just use that as a blueprint to the future. Anyhow, this is a very interesting part where I get into season 2. Because season 2 is really good. And season 2 addresses something kind of big in the comics, Bizarro World. Now, my experience with Bizarro World is quite limited. I've only seen and read the Silver Age Bizarro World, and it's very different. And I'm sure there's something else later on, like in the 80s, just before they introduced Matrix. I've seen Matrix in the Exile omnibus, and I think there's a Bizarro World storyline around that vein, like late 80s. I didn't read that one, unfortunately, but again, I've seen Bizarro World in the Silver Age, and it's quite different. So I address that because a lot of things with season 2 had to do with a Bizarro World, and it's peak. It's great because it's really a mirror. It's the reverse of what's going on with the main Earth that we are following since season 1. So the Kents we are following, the Kents that are the main characters, they are united even if they have struggle and sometimes they argue and sometimes they go their own way. In the end, they are still together. Their house is cleaned, the family is solid, and the family tries to lay low. The family doesn't want to be known as the super family. And when you get into the Bizarro World, spoiler again, you realize over there it's the polar opposite. Superman is a product. Superman is not really a hero, he is more like an emblem. Look at that superpowered being. And the family over there is fractured and destroyed. The Clark Kent from Bizarro World is a terrible father. And their house is a mess. And there's no secret identity. They are the super family. And it's very interesting to explore these polar opposites. And in that Bizarro World, Talro and Clark are together. They are one happy family. And it's very different from our Earth we are following. And in that season, we also get to see more of Steel. Steel being that very, very good ally. So let's get into season 2. I think Bizarro World is the highlight. It's probably the best part. So let's start as usual with the issues with that entire Bizarro season. My first issue would be Ali, yeah, the villain. The villain started off as great villain, but they dropped the ball. What started as a villain all about being powerful with words over might turned into a simply a powerhouse on crack. They tried to give her nuance, but failed doing so, since in the end she just felt incomplete, like an addict in Lucy. Even her dialogue got worse. She was weaker as a villain than both Anderson and Bizarro. Even when compared to Talro, she was weak. So again, Ali, that cult leader in season 2 that want to merge both Earths, she started off so good, but then they gave her powers, and she turned into that video game villain with video game villain lines. It's tragic, it's sad because she started off great. They just dropped the ball. And that happens sometimes when you make TV shows and movies. You cannot hold the momentum, you cannot keep going in the same or the right direction, I should say. It's tragic, right? It's what happened. Now, I will sound like a broken record because some of the issues season 1 had are coming back with season 2. Season 1 and season 2 had very similar issues. The pacing wasn't great. Lots of scenes were filler, especially when it came to the cushions. You can bet by cutting some of the filler, you end up with 13 or 14 episodes, which is an improvement over season 1, but still not good enough. The cushion truly dragged down the season a lot. And I get it, they wanted to give them material, they wanted to give them a reason. They really wanted to say, the Cushion are still around and they are important. But when you were following their day-to-day life, it didn't feel like a Superman show because they got less scenes with Lois and Clark. Some of the scenes they had together were really good, like Clark revealing his secret identity. That was amazing, but most of the Cushing stuff were in a bubble. That bubble wasn't as good as the rest because we were dealing with a cult. We were dealing with Bizarro that went after Ali to save Clark's world because this time around he wanted to be a hero for once. So you get that, but you get the Cushion. So you have like two different shows in one, and they didn't work well. They could have tied it up. And again, some of the Cushions I feel like was needed to just say they are still in the show. They are still the Kents. Like the mayor campaign aspect was fine, but I think they did spend too much time with that. The campaign and the office, reduce it. Again, I feel like one or two full episodes could have been cut just by keeping what mattered the most with the Cushings. And I don't think they did keep what mattered the most. And each time I would see the Cushing, I was like, not again. I want to see Bizarro. I want to see Ali. I want to see the Colts. Now, my third issue. The dialogue felt like a downgrade throughout the season. Some of the scenes and exchange between characters were off-putting. Most of the time it involved Sarah and Ali. After Ali transformed into a monster, Sarah also was some weak character. So again, that goes back to the Cushion. The Cushion were the worst part of season 2. And they were also kind of weak in season 1. Now let's get into the likes because season 2 is quite good nonetheless. So let's get into the likes. There's so many to say. Lucy character arc into realizing she need to heal herself and she is being loved by her family was great. Her breaking away from Ali was really fun. And it felt earned. She needed to see Superman fall. That icon, that emblem of peace and justice just fell before Lucy's eyes for Lucy to realize there's something wrong. She's not on the right side of history. And that was great. That was really good. Natalie's arc into accepting the new Earth was great. It felt earned when she called the boys her brothers. The action was entertaining and fun. Talro's character arc into wanting to help others and being inspired by Clark was great. His redemption felt earned since it took time and many good actions. Anderson character arc into realizing Soups was the good guy and was actually a bad guy was amazing. Clark growth into opening up and sharing the secret to others was great. Jordan embracing his power was very fun. And him starting on that superhero path was really good. To some extent, the death and return of Superman was adapted through that story while the Doomsday aspect. Clark's trip to Bizarro world was a window to a world without Superman with Steel and Superboy taking the mantle just like in Death and Return of Superman. It was also extended to when Clark temporarily lost his power. The adaptation was entertaining. Lala becoming the mayor and dealing with lies falling on her was great. Lost trusting Chrissy was nice growth because again she wasn't seeing Chrissy as her equal, but this has changed with this second season. So there's so much to like about second season. It's great. I feel like I have more to say, but there were also more issues. That's the other thing. Um, so the next stop would be Chrissy stopping to idolize Lois was nice growth. Bizarro and Bizarro World were amazing with very nice aspect to the lore and story. The new dynamic between DOD and Soups was amazing. It has changed. Sorry about that. But it has changed because Soups, with Sam Lane in charge of the DOD, they were a team. And this time around, Anderson was power hungry and he wanted to control Superman. He wanted Superman to belong to the US, and Superman did belong to the world, making this version so accurate to the comics. He is a hero for the people, not just America. Um, Sam's growth into being there for his family was great. Nice team of substance use, addiction, and not being able to cope well through Jonathan and Lucy's stories. Nice team of consequence and lies being connected and having massive weight. At first, Ali started off solid, all the way up when she got her almighty powers. And that's what I had to say about season 2. Now, I just realized I forgot something very important with season 1. So I will do it with season 1 and then I will do it with season 2. Season 1 was a solid 9.5 out of 10. Season 2 felt like a downgrade. It became an 8 out of 10 for me. Even if I had more to say and there's a lot to enjoy, season 2 didn't feel as good. It had substance, it was very fun. It's one of the best Superman story there is, in live action at least. But it was flawed. And it's tragic. Now there's the very entertaining part that we will get into. The tier list! And again, the disclaimer is right here, right now. This tier list will change. It will change once we will cover season 3 and 4. But as of right now, this will stand. So let's share it. Let's talk about it. We will find the right tab. So I will timestamp everything, right? Everything right. And that's the tier list as of right now. Very nice tier list. Let's get into it. I will zoom in a bit more. Okay. Perfect. So, I feel like as of right now, there's no bad episode whatsoever. We got the below average tier with one episode from season 1 and 2 episodes from season 2. So, as of right now, the worst 3 episodes for me were Lies That Bind, Fell Safe, Into Oblivion. An anti-hero, there's a lot of things to enjoy. The action, the visual were very good, but there are other aspects. And without even going back to my notes to really remember my really quick guess, my fast thought on it, it's most likely the freaking Cushing. They probably ruined that episode for me. And that's bad, that sucks. Anyhow. That's the tier list. The Eradicator was the top of the average tier, but now we get into really good material. The inverse method was very fun. And as of right now, Man of Steel from season 1 rules on top. But Waiting for Superman was quite good. And Last Sons of Krypton was very cool. And 30 Days and 30 Nights. 30 Days and 30 Nights is, I think, the episode that followed Clark going to Bizarro World, and we pick up with like Jordan and still taking up the slack left, the vacuum left by Superman being gone. So that second season had really good episode, but again, wasn't perfect. And this week episode, I just realized it will be much shorter than last week, but hey, that happens, right? So, this is the tier list as of right now. And I think Superman and Lois is one of the best live action we had. It's a fun TV show. I adore that thing. And now, Now, we are going into a very nice segment. The segment that gave this show, or my podcast, I should say, its name, the source of material aspect. Let's do this. So here I will put season 1 and 2 together. I think they adapted very well the story with the death and return of Superman. That was the only thing I could see from the comics that was adapted over here. Now I could see some Zod parallels between Talro and Zod and their goal and Superman's struggle with his lineage as a Kryptonian and his loyalty to the humans. And there's also Doomsday stuff because when Doomsday came in, he was smashing something, and Doomsday is connected with Clark. Uh, but I think most of the things that were adapted were really the death and return of Superman and Zod. Now, I think Ali, the Parasite, is a character in the comics. I haven't seen or read about her, so I don't know much. That's the unfortunate part. Now, when it comes to the characters, Lois, she is strong-headed just like in the comics. She is a great reporter just like in the comics. And she loves Superman a lot. And Lana was not aware of Clark's secret for most of her life. And that's something they revealed in season 2, and that was a great reveal there. Now, Superboy, he is getting arrogant, but that's more of a thing with season 3 and 4. Here, he just wants to help. Still is very different from the one I've seen in the comics. Now, of course, maybe there are other comics where still is in, and I didn't read these, but the one in the comics I've read, he was like, you know what, Superman saved me, therefore I need to build my own suit and save others to like keep the mental alive. That's what he did. But there are similar ways where they are both genius and they both use a very cool armor and they are both able to take on Kryptonian threats. Talro, I don't know if he is in the comics or if he is a new character. Now, Morgan Edge, I know, is in the comics. And Morgan Edge is very similar to Lex Luthor. And I didn't see much of Morgan Edge in the comics. I only remember him from the Exile when he was with Cat Grant, and Cat Grant was using him for an article and to investigate Intergang. And Intergang is something with season 3, wasn't in season 1, so that's different from the comic I've known Edge from. But what I've seen from Edge in the comics is merciless. He will just steamroll anyone that stands on his way, and that was very accurate to what we got with the TV show. Now, Jonathan in the comics, I don't know. Like, in the comics, maybe there's a storyline where there are twins, but based on what I've heard and what I know, which is kind of still limited as of right now, um, Superman always really had only one son. I think that show is really the place where we got two brothers. And I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, correct me the comic, in the comments after the show. So overall, Bizarro World was quite different from the Silver Age Bizarro World I have seen. Yes, the aesthetic, it's a cube, and the idea of it being all the reverse, it's all similar, but In this show, it felt more grounded. It felt more real. It felt more believable than in the comics, because in the comics it was basically Bizarro got a grudge against Superman and Superman world, so he moved to another planet with a bunch of his clones, and they create civilization that's everything the reverse from Earth. And we have a very comical aspect where everything must be ugly, and Superman, when he comes in, he doesn't know that, and he tried to fix his thing, and then he get jailed for that. That's kind of funny. um but it's also very goofy, because it's like, oh, all of these houses are ugly, Superman made them cool, so let's imprison him. That was the comic in the Silver Age in the 50s, which was very different from what we got in this show. um if we really compare both, it's accurate to the idea of being everything the polar opposite, but the origin of both world is so different, and how both world actually work with their laws is also very different, because in the comics from the Silver Age, that Bizarro world, Bizarro is the leader, he's the tyrant, it's his way. And in this show, the Bizarro world is really like a mirror of Clark's world. So it's different in a lot of aspects, like Talro as a wife. It's very different for sure. But how it seems it functions, it's similar. And yeah. So it's very hard for me to say, oh, that's the how accurate this is, because they took some liberty. But I can still see some of the storylines we had with the comics. Now, I think this adaptation of the Superman lore would be an 8 out of 10. And we also got like X Kryptonite. And in the comics I've seen from the Silver Age, X Kryptonite does indeed gives power. So it's another very comic booky thing they did. That was a very good thing. I think it might be slightly less accurate to Smallville, simply because the Bizarro world I have seen is so different. Now, I might be wrong. If I read the other Bizarro thingy in the 80s, maybe my opinion would be very different. But based on my experience, I think Smallville feels a lot more like the comics. And I will also admit that. I think Tyler Hoechlin, if we just take Superman as a character, far better than other live action. But I will admit this: the Clark persona, the Clark identity is weak here. And it's something with the entire season, the entire show. The Clark identity is weaker than the Superman identity. I think Superman and Lois had the best Superman, but the average Clark, that's on par with most of the other Clark. Um, that's how I feel. So maybe that's why I'm also like, you know what? It's an 8. And I do think later season, with season 3 and 4, they are more and more really on point, and they feel like reading comics and all. But season 1 and 2, they have something special, but they are not the most accurate. That sounds so weird. They're so accurate, but like I feel like we can have higher ceilings. Anyhow, the Superman and Lois first 2 seasons, I had a blast. If you have not seen that TV show, go see it. It's worth your time. It's really good. I cannot wait to cover season 3 and 4 eventually on this show. Anyhow, next week we talk about Lois and Clark, New Adventures of Superman. Only the first season, because we also get to talk about Christopher Reeve's Superman in 1978. So that's the planning for next week. And we are all ramping up for Superman that's coming out in exactly 10 days. I'm so excited. In 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, it's very soon. We talk about Man of Steel and Superman. I've read All Star Superman. I quite liked All Star Superman. And something tells me that James Gunn may have inspired himself with All Star when making the Superman movie. Anyhow, this is it for now. And tomorrow we talk about Megan and Megan 2.0. And Friday, there's more generic movies, or I should say, filmmaker movies, artsy movie. And with this, we are out.